Hey everyone, welcome back. This is a catch-up video of a trip we did in 2021. It was a group trip to the San Juan Mountains again in Colorado. We all love that area so much, we can't help but return, so I wanted to kind of show you around on our trip. Typically heading to Colorado, we leave on a Friday after work and make it to the kind of the Flagstaff area and spend the night there, kind of a little more than halfway to San Juan Mountains, and that's what we did here. And then we the next day we made it to Silverton area. Immediately we found our first moose, but unfortunately that was our only big wildlife that we saw the whole trip. Day one of our time in Silverton area, we headed up the Kendall Mountain area and also took the split off for the deer park section. And checked out the views of the town. It's basically leaves right out of Silverton. After taking this road as high as it goes, you basically end up right above the town of Silverton. You almost look like you could throw a snowball down into it. After the Kendall Mountain area, we headed up Arrastra Gulch to go towards the Mayflower Mine to kind of do some exploring in that area. There's a road that splits from Arrastra Gulch that goes to a little Giant Basin, and that's where we headed next. There's a really nice alpine lake at the top. It's a nice little place to go. Ouray was along for this trip, so I took my camper. So we kind of basically home based out of South Mineral Creek, not far out of Silverton, and it was a really nice area there right along the creek. Our goal was really to explore all the different roads in the area, and then we're able to come back pretty much. This is central location and camp here. A couple nights were spent out in the areas and not back at home base for everybody. Day two of this trip, we headed up the Buffalo Boy Mine area and basin and check out the ruins there and great views from up at the top of that. That's a pretty awesome place. Next, we headed up Mini Gulch. I think Maggie was closed for some road construction issues, so we skipped that one, kind of exploring each of the areas up there. This is a really nice drive. There's some mine ruins up there, but the views are just amazing. And part of the reason we go back to the Silverton area is this beautiful carpeted green landscape everywhere. We don't have that too much in Southern California, so that's part of the beauty that we're after. After Mini Gulch, we headed through Eureka and up to Eureka Gulch. Unfortunately, there was some construction going on there, so we ended up basically just following the south fork of the Animas River to the end of the road on that. And that was an area I'd never explored before. There's some nice camp spots up in there. From Eureka Gulch, we headed up, made a quick stop at Animas Forks, and then went through California Gulch and stopped at the Frisco Mill to check that out. There's pretty cool ruins there. This mill was actually originally constructed down in Silverton and then taken apart and brought up piece by piece and reconstructed here. So you'll see on some of the beams and stuff like that, you'll see numbers. So it was all basically put together by numbers. After the Frisco Mill, we headed up California Gulch to California Pass, one of our highest spots along the way. After California Pass, we drove by Como Lake and made up to Hurricane Pass, where the views are amazing as well. This trip was pretty early on in Jason's journey of modding his 4Runner, and he thought he'd do some snow wheeling, but it didn't get far at all. After Hurricane Pass, we headed down Cement Creek, went back to camp near Silverton, and spent the night. We did this trip towards the end of July, and the San Juans, that usually means it's pretty rainy, and there was pretty much rain almost every day we had on this trip, but luckily the campsite set up with the big awning and all that made it pretty habitable. Day 3 exploration started out with a road that kind of doesn't have a name. It's right between Soto Gulch and Hancock Gulch, just on Cement Creek, not far out of Silverton. And it's quite a climb up the side of the mountain. It goes towards some cabins, but it was quite a view up there. We really liked it. I don't think many people know about that road or go up there. It wasn't that heavily traveled. Next, we headed up Cement Creek a little bit further and turned off on Prospect Gulch. There's a few mines up that way and some great views of the Red Mountains. This road climbs up past the mine up the side of Red Mountain number 3, and there's some pretty awesome views from the top of this as well, looking over the other Red Mountains. On the way back down the mountain, we veered off to another reclaimed mine site, and there's a cabin standing there. It's kind of nice to see. We had a good time. There was actually some wild strawberries growing in the area. The old original main road to this mine was washed out, but that didn't stop some of the guys from having to try it out and see how well it does in the big trench.
Oh, whoa!
Of course, the Rubicon has to make it look like it's just another drive in the park. On this trip, we had Raymond in his Rubicon, and just before this was Jason in his third gen 4Runner, and before that was Sean in his Grand Cherokee. He now has, actually he has this Rubicon is what he's driving now. Also on this trip is Rebecca with her first gen Tundra. Dan was on this trip as well with his 1985 Toyota pickup, pretty much stock even with his solid front axle. And then of course me with the F-150. Next we headed up Cement Creek just a little bit further and went up to Velocity Basin and Minnehaha Basin. Had a really nice drive out to the very end of the road there where there's a pretty good overview or overlook of the Gold King mine. From there we went up the trail up as far as you could drive along Cement Creek and hung out with the marmots and listened to them chirp a bit. Lori had the sound down pretty good that she could make that would actually kind of get them going and calling them. Next on our list was Corkscrew Gulch, and on the way there is a cutoff that goes off to the right as you just get onto the road to Corkscrew Gulch and goes up over into a basin, and I'd never been there before so we decided to check it out. It's very lush and green, a lot of little lakes. And then we went on to Corkscrew Gulch. It's always one of my favorites because of the views there. The red mountains really do make a good contrast against the green, lush carpeting of the mountains. So we always love to do Corkscrew. After completing Corkscrew, we took the $1 Million Highway back to South Mineral Creek where our camp was and spent the night and getting ready for the next day. Alright, day 4 we decided to head south of Silverton a little ways off of 550 and we took the Lime Creek Road. I wouldn't really necessarily suggest it. It was kind of bumpy without that much of great views or anything on it. I mean, it's not horrible or anything like that, just nothing great. This spot near the end of it, it's the trailhead to Potato Lake, had a really nice, lily pond and beautiful flowers and all that. So this is probably the best part about the whole Line Creek Road. When Line Creek meets back up with 550, we just go a little bit further south and you get into the Purgatory Ski Resort area. From there we took the Trail 578 up through Hermosa Creek area and to Bolam Pass on over to the other side of the mountains. There are some mining ruins along this route and some just awesome views as always. This area doesn't get as traveled, I don't think, quite as much as up in the Alpine Lake area, so it was kind of nice that way, and the views are just as great. It was a fun trail too. We also got in the area of Bolam Lake, and that was really pretty. Lots and lots of flowers in the area. And this year was a wetter year, I think. Obviously we had rain almost every day we were there. It doesn't seem to, it doesn't ruin your day. You can have some drizzle while you're driving and everything. It just keeps the dust down. But one of the things I think being such a wet year that came about is that the mushrooms were certainly a lot more prevalent. I've been there several times before and never saw the mushrooms like they were this year. This road that goes through Bolam Pass area then dumps you out on the Highway 145, which is the highway that goes from Telluride down to Cortez. And from there we took that north for a little ways, and then you can get the road that goes over Ophir Pass heading back towards Silverton, and that's exactly what we did to get back to camp. The standard San Juan Mountain afternoon thunder showers were kind of rolling in when we got to the peak of Ophir Pass as well, so we got a little bit of a light show. That was pretty nice. Oh. The Overpass Road dumps out onto Highway 550 just a little bit north of Silverton a little ways, and that's a pretty quick access to our camp back on South Minnow Creek. Our Day 5 trail run is the Alpine Loop, so basically from Silverton you head up to Animas Forks, and from there you can kind of split off. We decided to do the Engineer towards Lake City and then come back over Cinnamon. About 3/4 of a mile before you get to the top of Engineer Pass, there's a split off that goes to Odom Point, and I'd never done that before this year, and it was definitely worth a little bit of it. It's like only a couple blocks or so drive off the main road, and it's a beautiful view out there. You're kind of out on a point, so you can kind of get a 270-degree shot of the whole valley here. It's just so beautiful in this area. That's one of the reasons we go there. This green carpeted, beautiful mountains and ruggedness and everything. So. Of course, we got to make the standard stop at the each pass sign. It's another time we're almost at 13,000 feet. That's amazing about this area, is that you're really high elevation every day. It's just like just routine on the area. It's amazing. Our way down the Lake City side of Engineer Pass Road, there's a trail labeled number 21 that you can veer off on and go, I don't know, 3-4 miles up, and you get to this Golconda boarding house at a big mine site that was up there, and it's been preserved, and it's pretty interesting to see. And of course, again, the views are amazing up in this bowl that's up in this area that this mine was at. Made the usual stop to Whitmore Falls to check it out. It's a really gorgeous little spot. And then, of course, there's some of the mining town ruins along the way as you get closer to Lake City. You have to check those out as well. Our stop at Lake City usually includes some ice cream cones from the old drugstore downtown Lake City. Along the road to Cinnamon Pass is a nice detour to the ghost town of Carson, and that was an overnight stay. Again, the summer thunderstorms were rolling in, and there was a heck of a light show from that. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe. We'll see you on the trail.